So, Google's John Mueller and Martin Splitt get together to chat about some really common issues that websites face with their content and, how to make sure that content actually performs as well as you want it to. Google's John Mueller and Martin Splitt talked about, the whole problem of how to approach content when you're trying to hit those business goals. They also touched on how important it is to set expectations and pointed out that sometimes it might not even matter if a site is fully optimized, if the content is already doing what it's supposed to do. Anyone can write, but honestly, it's pretty tough to communicate in a way that really meets what your audience needs. One thing SEOs often get wrong is, content, which is still the most important ranking factor in modern search engines. A big mistake people make is publishing entire sentences that just end up wasting everyone's time. I think that usually happens when writers are, just trying to meet some random word count, or they're adding context for all those high-volume keywords they want to rank for. Martin Splitt actually kicked off the discussion by asking how you should go about writing content. He also shared his own experience. He talked about how he's gotten it wrong before because he was writing for himself and not really thinking about what the audience actually needs to read. How would I know how to go about content? Because now I know who I want to address and probably also roughly what I want to do, but that's a whole different skill set, right? That's like copywriting and probably some researching and maybe some lettering and editing, and wow, that's a lot. I love to write. But I love having a technical writer on the team. Lizzie is a tremendous help with anything that is writing. I honestly thought I'm a reasonably good writer. And then Lizzie came and asked 3 questions on a piece of documentation that I thought was almost perfect. I basically started questioning the foundations of the universe because I was like, okay, no, this document doesn't even make sense. I haven't answered the fundamental questions that I need to answer before I can even start writing. I've written like 3 pages. Holy moly, that is a skill that is an amazingly tricky skill to acquire, I think. How do I start writing? Just write what I think I should be writing, I guess. Writing is easy to do, but difficult to do well. I've seen many sites that have the SEO fundamentals in place, but are undermined by the content. Splitt's experience highlights the value in getting a second opinion on content. So Mueller and Splitt, they move on to discuss what publishers and SEOs should actually write about. Their advice is really to focus on what users want. Honestly, sometimes it's as simple as just asking your readers or customers what they're interested in. I think, if you have absolutely no inspiration, one approach could be to ask your existing customers and just ask them like, how did you find me? What were you looking for? Where were you looking? Were you just looking on a map? What is it that brought you here? This is something that you can ask anyone, especially if you have a physical business. It's actually pretty easy to just ask this randomly without scaring people away. That's kind of one aspect I would do. And try to build up this collection of, these are different searches that people have done in different places, maybe on different systems. And I want to make sure I'm kind of visible there. So, John Mueller and Martin Splitt next provide, a bit of a reality check on the keyword phrases that publishers and SEOs choose to optimize for. It's not always about the difficulty of those phrases. Sometimes it's really about how relevant they are to your website. And then I would take those and just try them out and see what comes up and think about how reasonable it would be for one of your pages, perhaps to show up there. And how reasonable it can be, I think, is something where you have to be brutally honest with yourself. Because, it's sometimes tempting to say, I would like to appear first for the search bookstore on the internet. Probably that's not going to happen. Who knows? But there's a lot of competition for some of these terms. But if you're talking about someone searching for bookstores or bookstores in Zurich or bookstores on maps or something like that, then that's a lot more well-defined and a lot easier for you to look at and see what are other people doing there. Maybe my pages are already there, and based on that you can try to build out, what is it that I need to at least mention on my pages? Mueller followed up by downplaying whether a site is search optimized or not, saying that what's important is if the site is performing as well as intended. Whether or not it's properly optimized doesn't matter if it's already doing well as it is. Some may argue that the site could be doing better, but that's outside of the context of what Mueller was commenting on. Mueller's context was a business owner who was satisfied with the performance of the site. I mean, it all depends on how serious you take your goal, right? If you're like a small local business, you're saying, well, I have a website and I hear I should make it SEO, but I don't really care. Then it's like do whatever you want kind of thing. If you have enough business and you're happy, there's no one to judge you to say your website is not SEO optimized.